happy to be presenting this or offering this presentation for you on managing stress in difficult times, right? Especially when work still has to get done. And I think we're all in that place right now. So Lara Heacock has sorry about that, I just accidentally muted myself. So we are hosting it here in our Zoom classroom, and hopefully, I'm sure at this point, many of you are probably familiar with Zoom, but in case you're not, I just wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to interact with us in this classroom. And Lara, while I'm doing this, if I could just ask that you keep admitting people as they show up.
On it.
Awesome. Perfect.
Go team.
Yay! It takes a village, man. It takes
yes, it takes a village.
So if you hover your cursor over the bottom of your screen, you'll see the control panel. To the very left, you're going to see the either microphone icon or the phone icon, depending on how you chose to get your audio in today's session. You can click on that to mute it or unmute it. I'm going to ask, like I said, that all of you do mute your audio at this point. If you're having difficulty and need help with that, you can send me a message in chat. And the way that you're going to do that is, again, if you're looking at the control panel at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the chat icon. It looks like a speech bubble. If you've not already opened that, please go ahead, click on that and open that up. See in the chat panel that you're able to send a text message to me. The default that your message is going to go to everyone. I would ask that if you are sending a message out there that pertains to the content that we're discussing today, to please go ahead and send your message to everyone. If, however, you want to send a message privately, either to myself or to Lara, you can click on the drop-down arrow next to everyone and find our names and send us a message. We are going to use chat because Lara wants to hear from you today, and chat's a great way to communicate not only with Lara, but with everybody in the session. So you want to make sure you have your chat panel open. The other panel that you want to open, and again, if you go back to that control panel at the bottom of your screen, is click on Manage Participants. When you click on that, you're going to see the participant list. So you're going to see everybody that's in the session, but you're also going to see the nonverbal feedback tools that are available to you. So this is your opportunity to raise your hand, to give us a green check or a red X, to ask Lara to slow down or to go faster. So I'm going to ask everyone now, go ahead and open up that panel if you haven't already done so, and go ahead and give us a green check if you see those controls. All right, awesome. Lots of green checks coming through. All right, so again, waiting for some people to still go ahead and click on those green checks. You want to click on Manage Participants. It's going to be at the bottom of your screen. So you're looking at Lara's screen. She's showing this beautiful PowerPoint slide. Hover over the bottom of your computer, click on Manage Participants. That will open up the participant panel for you, and you'll see you have the ability to give now to check or click on the green check. Also have the ability there, like I said, to raise your hand. So at any point throughout today's session, if you want to go ahead and ask a question of Lara, just go ahead and raise your hand, and then she can call on you. So still looking for some people to go ahead and give us that green check to let us know that they're able to find that. All right.
So Nicole is not seeing managed participants. So if people are on a phone instead of a computer, you might have to swipe through your screens to be able to see that control panel. But if you are on a computer, it's the icon with two heads, if anyone's having trouble seeing it. Does that help?
All right. So you know what, Lara, what I think I'd like to do is
we'll just use the chat. If folks,
go ahead, what was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say we can use the chat if folks don't see the participant panel for whatever reason. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Nicole's good. Thanks, Nicole, for the chat.
All right, perfect. So, all right, what I'm gonna do then is so I think that covers it, right? So you know how to open up the chat and communicate with us via chat. And you know how to open up your managed participants. I think that's all you need to know to successfully participate in today's session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lara. I'm going to allow Lara to introduce herself because she'll do a way better job at it than I will. And I'm also going to take my video down because you don't need to worry about me anymore. Lara, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. And Margaret, can I just ask you, would you mind if I miss somebody that's raised their hand or that put something in the chat because I'm lost in my own presentation, would you just ping me or turn your video back on and let me know?
I will absolutely do that, promise.
Thank you, because I'm going to get that away as well. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I'll start by quickly introducing myself. As Margaret said, I am Lara Heacock. I like to tell everybody you can pretend there's a U in my name. I say it just like there is a U. I'm a child of the 70s. I'm actually named after the character Lara in the movie Dr. Zhivago. I am a leadership and executive coach. You can find all my information at laraheacock.com. I also co-host a podcast called Doing Good Business. I am editor-in-chief at a personal development blog called Kind Over Matter, and I'm the author of the book Practical Kindness. So thank you to MEA. These webinars this week are awesome. I had the opportunity to check out the self-care one yesterday, so if anybody was in that, there was some great information, and we're going to build on that today. So these are difficult times. I don't think that that is news to anyone. It's weird. I don't think anyone has ever lived through anything like this. But at the end of the day, we still have to get work done. We still have jobs that we have to do, and we still have families and meetings and employees and teams that we have to take care of. And a big chunk of my work with my private corporate clients is helping them do work they love without burning out. So what better time to talk about managing stress than right now? So where do we begin? It's also a great podcast by Esther Perel, if anybody is a fan of her, but it's where we're going to start today. And we're going to start by calling a thing a thing. So I think a lot of times in our culture, we can be socialized to, you know, kind of soldier on and buck up and not necessarily admit when we are feeling a certain way. Or if you think about the greeting, how you doing? Everybody just says fine. We move on with our lives. We're not calling a thing a thing. And I'm going to pause real quick just for a second, and I'm going to hit the mute all because I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. Bear with me for 1 second. So if you hear me muting you, that is intentional, and you can. All right, awesome. Back to it. Now let me make sure. Oh, I have to unmute myself. Okay, perfect. Now I'm unmuted. Awesome. Thank you, Margaret. I have my participant panel up, so we're good to go. So we're going to start by calling a thing, and that is really just by acknowledging that we are stressed right now. So when we're naming it, there's research around our emotional vocabulary. And what I mean by emotional vocabulary is you can see this wheel on the center of your screen, and the largest chunk in the center are the seven most common feelings that people can name. Now, I've seen research showing that that number is as low as 3. When people are asked to name emotions, it's usually happy, sad, angry. Those are the big 3. But you see all of the possibilities as you go out a layer from that wheel, and then you go out to the 3rd layer of that wheel. So the research around naming it, a lot of our resistance is around, well, I don't want to say I'm naming it. You know, if I say I don't feel well, or I feel stressed, or I feel sad, or I feel upset, then I think the common misnomer is that that's going to draw more attention to it. Like if you say you're feeling, you know, a quote unquote negative emotion, it's going to amplify that. Well, actually what the research shows is that when you name it, it actually takes power away from that quote negative emotion, and it brings your power back. So sometimes just the simple act of saying, God, I am really stressed today, or I am really worried about, you know, my team. I really don't know, how am I going to juggle the kids and their homeschool and, you know, my meetings and my partner's meetings, and my gosh, am I even allowed to go to the grocery store? So all of those things, when we actually name them, can give us our power back and take some of the stress away from that emotion. So if you look at the wheel, you know, the green color that says, you know, bad is how am I feeling? You go 1 layer out, there you see tired, you see stressed, you see busy, you see bored. And if you go 1 layer out specifically from stressed, overwhelmed, out of control, you know, other things that you might be feeling, sleepy, rushed, apathetic, indifferent, you know, maybe you're feeling lonely, maybe you're actually feeling really proud of yourself, maybe you're feeling kind of bitter for the way the circumstance has gone. But this can be a great tool to use when you think about emotions. And if you are somebody that falls into the happy, sad, angry category, and that's all you use, then definitely use this as a tool. If you just Google the emotions wheel, you can find this, and think about how you can use a more descriptive word that's maybe more suitable for what you're feeling right now. So we start by naming it. We start by saying, this is how I'm feeling. We're going to own it, and we're going to put it out there, because that will take the power away from the emotion and actually give you some power back. Once we've named it, let's learn about it. There was a great study that I heard about on a podcast. If you talk to me long enough, you'll learn that many of my conversations start with, I heard on a podcast. But the podcast I was listening to quoted a study from the Yale Interdisciplinary Stress Center. And they talked about 3 factors that make stress spiral. So those 3 factors are unpredictable, uncontrollable, and sustained. I don't think there are any 3 factors that better describe what's going on in the world right now. We have no idea what's going to change from day to day, from minute to minute, from hour to hour. We literally cannot control, aside from the things that we're doing, the social distancing and, sheltering in place, in large degree, we can't control the way this virus progresses, the way our companies handle it, the way our work looks from day to day. And it's sustained. I live in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. So I'm in week 2.5 of being at home and being in lockdown. So it's sustained. So we're in prime time. When I named this presentation Difficult Times, this is probably one of the most difficult environmental things that any of us have ever lived through. It meets all of these 3 criteria. So unpredictable, uncontrollable, sustained. And I don't say this to scare anyone. I say this to normalize it. I want to normalize the experience that everybody's having. And this is research-based. The fact that you're feeling stressed, the fact that you're feeling, whatever feeling on that feeling wheel, it's aligned with the research and what things feel like. So we're going to acknowledge it in other podcasts. Brene Brown just released a great podcast, and her first episode was about FFTs. And she says, effing first times. I won't use the actual word, I'm sure you can imagine, but this is our first time. So as we're naming it, we also need to acknowledge it. I said this earlier, none of us have ever lived through anything like this. There's no playbook, there's no rule book. We don't know how to manage these things. This is a first time. So when you're experiencing something for the first time, and all of the information I'm going to share with you today, I especially wanted to bring it to you right now, but this is all applicable for the rest of your life. So 6 months from now, knock on wood, when everything is back to a new way of being normal, all of these stress management tips are still going to be applicable. So when you're doing something for the first time, maybe a year from now, you're going to be interviewing for a promotion in your company, or maybe you're going to be learning a brand new skill set. Maybe for you it's Zoom, and thinking about the technology that Margaret explained to us earlier in the day. It's the first time. So what do we do when we're experiencing something for the first time? We have to acknowledge it, and we have to check our expectations. So release yourself from the expectation that it will be easy or that you'll do it right. Let your expectations be more aligned with the fact that this is the first time. Give yourself a deep breath. I talk to my clients a lot about giving themselves a permission slip. Give yourself a permission slip to do it wrong. Maybe you've never used Zoom. Maybe you've never managed a team in a virtual environment. We have to acknowledge that we've never done these things, and then let ourselves adjust those expectations. So not expecting it to be easy, not expecting it to be done perfectly. Who's a fellow perfectionist in here? Give me a green check if you identify as a perfectionist like I do. So I know, okay, see, at least, yeah, the numbers are climbing. Big love sign to you guys. So those of us that identify as perfectionists, when we are doing something for the first time, I know for me, I typically am thinking, well, why can't I figure this out? Why don't I know how to use Zoom perfectly? Why don't I know perfectly how to manage my team remotely? Why don't I know how to handle all of these feelings that are coming up for people? So particularly for the dozen of you that just said that you are with me, thank you, and you do identify as a perfectionist, check those expectations. Give yourself a second, think about, I find sometimes it's helpful to just put a hand over my heart or put a hand over my belly and just remember, oh, right, this is my first time. I need to acknowledge that, and I need to let myself off the hook, and I need to not expect myself to do it right or to do it perfectly the first time. So that's how we acknowledge it. Now I want to make it personal. So we started with a couple of general guidelines. We want to name it. So we want to call a thing a thing. What's the feeling that I'm experiencing right now? We want to acknowledge it, and then we want to manage our expectations. But let's make it personal because everybody's very different. And this is where I'm going to invite you to use the chat as I go through some of these stress signs. So when I talk about stress signs, what I mean is the 3 types of stress signs are physical or somatic. Somatic just means of the body. Cognitive or intellectual, so that's the thoughts, like all the thinky thinks that we have going on in our mind. And then emotions or feeling state. So that goes back to that feeling wheel. So let's start thinking about it, and think about it as I'm describing these things. What are your stress signs? And if you're comfortable, share them in the chat. I'm going to share some of mine so that you can understand the context. So physical or somatic, what I notice about myself when I'm stressed, I will ball my hands into little fists. I've noticed that sometimes, even if I'm laying in bed, my hands might be in fists. That's a clue to me that I'm feeling stressed, even though maybe I haven't made the connection or acknowledged the feeling yet. For some people, that can mean a churning in their stomach. For some people, it can mean tightness in your neck, or your shoulders go up to your ears. Yeah, Angela says she doesn't eat, she gets shaky hands. That's a big one. You know, thinking about those physical signs, and what we're looking for is just to learn about ourselves, because when you learn about yourself, then you can implement some of the things that I'm going to talk about in the second half of this presentation. Yeah, clenched jaw, tight shoulders, overeating, undereating, all of these are physical or somatic signs. So it's learning about what are your personal stress signs, being on the lookout for them, and then they become your clue that, oh, I need to start implementing some of these things that I learned from Lara the other day. So physical or somatic. Second is cognitive or intellectual. And that goes a little bit back to what I was saying previously about the perfectionist. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I unmuted myself. I didn't know how to use Zoom. What's wrong with me? Everybody else uses Zoom. Those are the thought loops and the thought patterns that we can get stuck in when we're stressed. You know, maybe you notice a little bit more comparisonitis, shall we say, and you notice that you are feeling that there's an inner voice that's telling you, oh, I should have been done with that. I should have been better with that. I should have done that faster. I should have gotten that sooner. Anytime you hear should, or if you hear always, or if you hear never, those are great clues that there's probably some sort of cognitive or intellectual stress loop running, and you can notice that about yourself, and that's a clue that you might want to use some of the tools that we're going to talk about later. And then finally, emotion or feeling. So going back to that feeling wheel, thinking about it, you know, Googling it and finding it for yourself if that's something that's helpful to have. What's the feeling that you're noticing? You know, maybe you start to feel a little bit sad. Maybe you feel a lot of energy. You know, for some people, they get a lot of energy boost from feeling stressed. For some people, they feel, you know, exhausted, or they lack empathy. So whatever the feeling state is that applies to you, this one tends to be the one that we have the most difficult time with in our Western culture. We don't spend a lot of time in this emotional or feeling state. So the somatic and the intellectual might be the places that you start. I call them entry points. So just think about, what are your entry points to know when you're stressed? Maybe it is that churning stomach. Maybe it's the tightness in your neck. Maybe it's shaky hands. Maybe it's cold, you know, cold hands and toes, you know, sweaty. A lot of people, when they're nervous, they get sweaty. So all of these are signs, and knowing yours and learning your stress signs can help you take action before you go into that downward spiral. How do we handle it? This is where it gets good. This is what everybody's here for. There are 4 main ways that I've categorized for you in how we want to handle this. So first, we've named it. We've acknowledged that it's hard. We've adjusted our expectations. We've keyed into our stress signs. We know that, you know, the stomach's churning, the shoulders are in the ears, you know, maybe the hands are sweaty or the feet are cold, whatever it is. 4 main ways that we want to handle this and really move that stress down on the stress thermometer so that you can get the work done. We want to regain control where we can. We want to maintain connection. We want to find purpose in our work, and we want to establish personal practices. So these are the 4 categories. Don't worry about taking notes. There's a PDF that Margaret's going to give to everybody at the end that has some more information for you to take with you, because I know personally, especially when I'm stressed, memory is the first thing to go, and I want you guys to be able to have a resource to go to when you need it most. So let's start with regaining control. 3 big things around regaining control. My friend Jo Casey, who's an amazing business coach, she's actually in the UK, and I'm lucky enough to mastermind with her, taught me about the concept of stability zones. So when things are totally out of control, as they are in the world now, our brain tends to say, oh my God, everything's out of control, freaking out, 100% of things are out of control. What's really true is that there's a lot of things that are still exactly the same, and those are your stability zones. So a great practice to do for yourself is just take 5 minutes and a piece of paper and a pen and write down all of the things that are the same. Maybe you live in the same home. Maybe you are, living with the same people. Maybe you're, the flowers are still blooming. The trees are still getting leaves. Those are all stability zones. And those can be really grounding and anchoring practices to create for yourself when it feels like everything has changed and everything is different. It's actually not true. So regain a little bit of control, find your stability zones, write them down, and go back to them whenever you need them to feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit more in control. Second is routine. Now, again, perfectionist, raising my hand. I do not mean from 8 to 9, the kids do math, and from 9 to 10, I'm on a conference call, and from 10 to 11, my partner watches them, and lunch is always 12 to... That is not the kind of routine I mean. What I mean is, how can you put some sameness into your day? I've been working from home for years, and my first year, I'm not scared to admit, it was off the rails. It was, snooze city until I had to get up for the first meeting. I worked in a corporate job when I was working from home. There was always pajamas. I had all of these wonderful expectations, and none of them ever happened. I had to establish a routine for myself. And even now, when my days look very different, that routine is one of the biggest things that gives me a sense of control and grounds me back into my moment. So maybe your routine is you get up and you immediately get in the shower. Maybe you have breakfast as a family before you start work. Maybe it's, the kids are allowed to watch YouTube until noon, and then after lunch they have to do their schoolwork. Whatever it looks like for you and your family and your circumstance right now, give yourself some kind of routine. Now, when we're talking about work, that can include techniques like the Pomodoro technique, which is a time management strategy. And it's basically saying, set a timer for 25 minutes, focus for 25 minutes, rest for 5, and repeat. So you really are giving yourself these small increments of chunks to do work in, and then you get a 5-minute break in between to help your focus and to help come back. Maybe that's a routine you want to try. I practice something called batch processing, which means that I'm going to block out 3 hours and I'm going to edit 3 podcasts. And then I'm going to block out another 2 hours and I'm going to write 4 blog posts. So are there tasks in your life that you can chunk together so that your attention gets to be maintained over a longer period of time? So these are just a couple of things that are options out there, batch processing, using a Pomodoro timer if that's something that's helpful for you. But the basic umbrella is find a routine for yourself, for your family, for whoever you're cohabitating and sheltering in place with right now, and help everybody stick to it, because that will bring a sense of control back to your life. And please, please, please don't forget fun in your routine. It's so easy, especially at times like this, to not watch the funny YouTube videos, or to not watch your favorite funny movie, or to not, you can still go outside and, stand in the sun, or toss a ball around, or, walk your dog, things like that. Please, please, please make sure that fun is a part of your routine and is something that you need to, is something that you plan for and you incorporate into your day. So first C is control. Second C is connection. So we want to talk about connection to others, and, especially if you're a leader or you have a team, or even if you have peers. So I was watching, I love Marcus Buckingham. He's really kind of one of the forerunners in the strengths-focused leadership research area. And he's doing some great stuff on Instagram right now. And one of the things that he said was the research shows that the connection vehicle does not matter. It's the frequency. And if you're a leader and you're managing teams, what they say is the frequency is every week. So whether it's Skype, whether it's check-in, whether it's Zoom, whether it's a text, when we can be in person, that's great. But a weekly check-in, it maintains that connection, and it doesn't matter that it's virtual right now. It has to be virtual right now. So maintain that connection. Maybe it's just a text I was texting earlier today with a cousin of mine that lives in Connecticut that, we haven't connected in a few months. And I felt such a bolstering of my connection. It really boosted my mood. It really lifted my stress. So maintain your connection to others, at least once a week. I would encourage a little text every day. But in the professional setting, if you're leading one-on-ones or you're attending a one-on-one with your leader, don't let those drop right now. We need connection right now more than ever. And then connection to self. So here's a try this at home tip, and there's some research on this as well. If you talk to yourself in the third person, and that's a connection with yourself, it actually reduces your stress and it puts your brain into an external perspective instead of being so stuck in some of those cognitive loops that we'd mentioned and some of those stress, talk tracks that we can all have coming up in our head. So I might say to myself something like, okay, Lara, I know you're feeling stressed right now. You've got to get those slides to Margaret by 11:30, but you've done this before and you've always delivered, and I know you can do it again. So it sounds kind of corny, and you totally don't have to do it out loud. My husband works in healthcare IT, so I am home alone. But if you are sheltering in place with a family and you don't feel comfortable doing it out loud, you can do it in your head. So try using your name as a try it at home tip when you're feeling stressed, and just say to yourself, okay, your breathing's really shallow right now. Maybe we need to pause and take a deep breath, Lara. Let's think about this. What's going to make you feel better? Like, Lara, I've seen you do this better. I've seen you, deliver these things. I know you can make it through this stressful time. So try that at home as a way to connect to yourself and to also lower your stress at the same time. Reconnect. Purpose. Yeah, go ahead.
So just back to that other slide, and I love what you're saying about the connection, and I love Marcus Buckingham. I think he's awesome, and follow
there we
him.
go.
I think once a week under normal circumstances probably works, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say right now, with the pace at which things are changing and the fact that so many of us are now managing a team that we used to be co-located with, and now they're from us, and that's new for everybody, that, as you had said, right, that daily communication, even if just the check-in via text, and then maybe a more formal kind of meeting or something twice a week. I just think more than once a week right now would be my recommendation, just because of how much things are changing and how unstable things feel. And I think our teams need that from us as leaders.
I love that. And I totally, totally agree. I think that now there is no such thing as over communicating or connecting too much. So yeah, what do you think, Mark? Like 2-3 times a week?
I think it does really depend on your team. I know for me, I meet with my team and I get on Zoom every day, and it's kind of like, what are the priorities today? What's everyone working on? And what support do you need from me or from someone else on the team? And it just helps us all kind of be focused on what we need to get done that day. And again, because it's changing so often, that opportunity to have that conversation and that grounding has really been helpful. Not everybody might need to do that, but I would say really, really think about what your team needs, and maybe ask them, because I think there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, what do you need? How often should we be talking?
Yeah. So I'll give, and thank you so much for that. And I'll give my my favorite way to start meetings, and I stole this admittedly from a gentleman named Jerry Kalana, who is an executive coach and the author of a book called Reboot, which I love and recommend. Every meeting that he runs in his organization, and I've started running meetings this way too, starts with a personal level check-in, and it's super simple. It's red, yellow, green. So everybody goes around and says if they're red, yellow, or green. And red means I am not present. I am super distracted. I have a lot of stuff going on. I'm physically here, but my mind is elsewhere. Yellow is I'm kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, a little distracted, but I'm trying to be present. And green is I'm here, I'm good, I'm ready to go, I'm 100% present. And it's done without judgment, but really what that does is it eliminates the thing that can happen after the meeting where it's like, oof, man, Lara didn't have anything valuable to add to that meeting. If we start by doing a red, yellow, green check-in as a way of maintaining connection to others when we're doing those more frequent meetings, Patricia sharing that she's meeting with her team daily or connecting either by phone, text, or Zoom, and that's keeping them connected. If you have larger team meetings, grab that red, yellow, green tool. It's super simple. It takes 30 seconds to explain it to folks, and it's a really great way to just level the playing field and let people just bring their humanity to this business meeting and then shift right into business as usual, because I think there's value in that too. I think that we need to increase the connection, and we need to give people a little bit of space in their lives where there is just some business as usual and we're not talking about our fear all the time. So that's a great way to do that and to increase connection. So
And you know,
Perfect.
Laura, just to jump in there real quick,
Yeah.
because you started the beginning of this presentation with, we need to name how we're feeling.
Yep.
Right? So that's that opportunity that you're giving your employees to basically let you know how they're feeling. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Again, that book, if you want to put it, it's called Reboot, and it's the subtitle is Leadership and the Art of Growing Up. So that gives you a little insight into what's in store for you in the book. But that's one of the greatest tips I got. And I will say it has changed. I run a bunch of team meetings and the various things I do, and it's really shifted the way people have shown up. So it's a great tool.
All right, did you say it was called Reboot, R-E-B-O-O-T?
Yep, and his name is, I'll put the name in the chat right there. If I can type. Here we go. So you can find it. It's on Amazon, which will come in a couple weeks. But yeah, oh my gosh, Mike is saying some colleagues are sheltering in place alone. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Even a few minutes of brief contact makes a huge difference. You're exactly right. I was talking to somebody this morning and thinking just, how much empathy I have for people that are, at home alone without anyone and, without even having pets. So really having that connection point daily and, at the very least a couple times a week, I think is critical right now. Awesome examples, guys. Oh, Christine's already using red, yellow, green in her team meetings. Love it. So let's go into purpose. So there's awesome research by the Mayo Clinic on avoiding burnout. And they say that you only need to find purpose in 20% of your work. So right now, I think it's even more critical to connect to that sense of purpose. So, maybe you are 8 layers removed from patients, but you're still doing something in healthcare, and that can be your purpose. Maybe your purpose is as simple as this work allows me to care for my family. Maybe you are, lucky and you are working in a job that you feel really aligned to, and really there's a values match, and it feels like it really lets you live your purpose. But look for something, even if it's just in an hour of your work every day, find something to connect to that fulfills your sense of purpose. Find a piece of your work. Heck, maybe it's, maybe you love delivering information and data and you are the spreadsheet guru and you can teach people like me who have like the Excel skills of a 5th grader how to make beautiful spreadsheets, and that makes you feel really connected to your purpose. So it doesn't matter what it is, it just matters that we need to look for it. And I think a lot of times we can just get into this, lather, rinse, repeat lifestyle, go to work, have dinner, go to bed, get up, repeat. And right now it pays to take a little bit of time and to pause and to find some of that purpose again so that we can really lower our stress level. And our second P is personal practices. So this expands a bit on the self-care webinar from yesterday. So the big personal practices that I like to think of are movement, quiet, and then nourishment and hydration. So yes, I'm a firm believer that you need both movement and quiet. I've been joking with my friends in the past couple of weeks and saying, this goes under the joy category that we talked about earlier. It has taken a pandemic for me to take physical movement for my body seriously. I have implemented in the past 2 weeks, every time it's sunny, a daily sanity walk. And I'm not kidding when I call it a sanity walk. Like, this is the thing that allows me to manage my own stress so that in my work and with my clients, I can be there and be present for them. A lot of research around stress living in our body. We all know the negative impacts of stress. The antidote for that is movement. So whatever movement you can do that feels good in your body, maybe it's walking, maybe it's chair yoga, maybe it's something really intense, maybe it's something a little bit less intense. It can even be something as simple as, just sitting and jiggling your arms when you feel that physical stress coming on, or tapping your leg, or something to get that energy moving through your physical body so that it doesn't build up in there. And then quiet. I mean, it might seem kind of counterintuitive, how could we have more quiet? We're all at home, we can't go anywhere. But I'm a firm believer that a couple minutes, a couple times a week, this is not I'm going to sit and practice meditation for an hour, being uncomfortable every day. No, this is, I use an app called Insight Timer. It's got great guided meditations. If you can start with 2 minutes, 2 times a week, 3 minutes, 3 times a week, there is not a single piece of research that you can find that does not say that meditation and mindfulness don't lower your stress. So it's a really huge tool in your personal practice toolkit to reduce your stress when it's coming up. And then finally, nourishment and hydration. I've been talking a lot about this week with folks, and it is so key that we are, probably drinking more water than we normally would, eating foods that, feel good for your body. And for everybody, that's different. For some people, it's a lot of fruit and vegetables. And for some people, it's a lot of, you know, meat and protein. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's a matter of what it is for you. What is the way that you feed your body and hydrate your body that makes you feel best? How much sleep do you need? Now is not the time to be shortchanging your sleep. So how can you make sure that you're able to get 7 to 8 hours a night? You know, maybe you need a little more sleep right now. I know I do. You probably need a little more hydration right now. Maybe you need to really make, you know, the way you're nourishing your body a priority, because all of these things are going to help you keep that stress level down. So your personal practices include things like movement. How do you find quiet mindfulness in your life? And how do you nourish, feed, hydrate your body, and take care of sleep? So for my acronym numbers, this is the CCPP, or the Big Four, and I'm not talking about the public accounting firms. So getting our stress level down, still being able to get our work done, we need these 4 factors. We need to find control where we can. We need to maintain connection. All of you are totally on that train. I love the chat that was going on and hearing about all the connection. We need to connect to purpose with intention. It's more important now than ever than to find that 20% of our workday where you can find your purpose. And we need to be really, really good with our personal practices. You know, it's been rainy a couple days this week, so I wasn't walking. You know, I made sure I did a YouTube yoga video. You know, these are the things that have to be in place so that we can bring the stress down. It's probably not going to totally go away. I wish I had the magic formula for that, but these are the strategies that will help you manage things now when it's critically important, as well as when things are different and things are back to, you know, whatever the new normal looks like. So you're back in your day job, you're back in your office, you're back doing all the things, kids are in school. These practices are still going to come in handy. Learning your personal stress signs. You know, what does your body do? What does your brain do? What are your feelings that are showing up? They're all going to help you. Those become your guideposts and your markers that are like, oh, my stress signs are coming out. I need to pull out the Big Four. I need to find my routine again. I need to make sure I'm connecting. Maybe I haven't connected with loved ones. Gosh, I'm not feeling really purposeful in my work right now. Let me pause and find that. And I've noticed that I've stopped moving my body and practicing my silence practice every day. So maybe I need to amp that up more. So this is really the formula to help you. It's learning your personal stress signs and then having the tools to bring in when you need them. And there's the PDF. So here's some resources, some things that I've mentioned throughout this presentation, as well as some additional ones, and they are all included in the PDF that Margaret was just kind enough to put in the chat. So you can download that. That is yours to keep. I believe in resources because, again, I know at least with myself, my memory is not the greatest, and especially when we're stressed, our memory is the first thing to go. So the Brene Brown podcast that I mentioned is linked, the Yale interdisciplinary stress study that I mentioned, a link to Marcus Buckingham on Instagram, a study about talking to yourself in the third person, and then a link to an article that I wrote a couple years ago. I was on a wine tour, and they said something that really caught my ear. They said, stressed grapes make the best wine. And all that I could hear in my head was, but the same isn't true for humans. So kind of a little helpful resource to have in times of stress when you need it. So with that, it looks like we have 5 minutes to spare, and I would love to chat through any questions that anyone has. So you can use the raise hand function in the participant box, or you can just throw it in the chat. I can see both of those things. What questions can I help you guys with? What stuck for you? Let me start by asking that, you know, what did you learn about your own stress signs? Or, you know, who's already practicing some of these things? Or what's the biggest thing that you want to take away and implement starting tomorrow? Any one of those questions.
Please go ahead and share your thoughts in chat. We'd love to hear them.
Margaret, I'm curious, do you have any like daily routine practices that you've been really leaning into?
I'm sorry, did you ask me, Laura?
I did. I'm just curious if you have any routine that you have found really helpful for yourself since you've been at home.
So a couple things. One, definitely trying to keep the same schedule, right? Keep my work schedule pretty much the same. I will say I am slipping a little bit since I don't have to drive to work. I have a little bit of that luxury to sleep in a little bit longer. But definitely the getting outside. So when it's not raining, I'm getting out, I'm taking a walk. And then just still every day being physical, like somehow getting in some type of activity. It does really feel good. It does really help. And I think the other thing is just getting up in the morning at pretty much at the same time and then getting dressed. Like it does mentally just really help for you to still get dressed for work. It's something to to stay in your pajamas all day, but mentally it doesn't set you up well, I think, to feel really good. So I would say that's what I'm doing. Would love to hear what some other people are doing.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that, mentioning the commute time, it's definitely, that's such an opportunity. Yeah, you can use that time for something else. So Angela says, now that her team is remote, we do a daily wake up video chat each morning where we have our coffee together and just chat and then move on to our plans for the day. I'm going to add the red, yellow, green to that. I love that. What a personal way to connect with folks, Angela. That's amazing. Just giving them that chance to have that human connection and then get to work again, because there's value in both. Let's name it. Let's talk about how we're feeling. Let's let everybody have a space to just really connect and be together. And then let's move into the place where we can work. And those two things work so powerfully together. Once we do name it and we do connect with each other, we're able to go into that work mode and be much more effective and actually get our work done. Oh, Katie, yeah. Unplugged on Saturday and had a natural sleep without alarm. One of my practices is I have to have at least one computer-free day on the weekend. So no laptop, no, if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be for my phone, and that's probably just going to be personal Instagram. But yeah, a computer-free day is a magic practice. This is bringing focus and mindfulness to the signs and what to do about it. I want to dig in and put a name to what's going on for me. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Feel free to grab the feelings chart, and if that helps you name it, the link would be great. Yep, link is coming from Margaret. It's going to be sent out to everyone. These are great practices. So just really looking at how can you bring the big four into your life? When do you need to bring the big four into your life? And establishing these habits right now. Maybe you use the time when you would have been commuting to move your body or to practice mindfulness in the morning or in the afternoon. That's your time to establish the habit. There's a lot of different science on habit formation, but if you can do these things for the next couple weeks or month or so, you're going to have a firmly established movement and mindfulness habit so that you can bring that into when we are back out and we are going to work together. So perfect time to actually start these habits. So all right, I think that brings us right to time. So any other questions? Thank you all for being here and for participating and for sharing. And thank you, Margaret, for doing this and for bringing all of these amazing webinars to folks this week when they really need them.
No problem. My pleasure. This was awesome. I did just want to mention to everyone, and I loved that towards the end of your presentation, you talked about pausing, right? And how important it is for us to take the pause. So I don't know if everyone got a chance to see it, but tomorrow our webinar that we're doing at noon is actually mindfulness meditation. Yay! And in that, she's going to be talking about how that's so important. She's also going to be taking us through a guided meditation, and then she will have a handout for everyone that will allow them to basically take themselves through that meditation after the session is over, right? To have is something that they can make part of their daily practice. So that was perfect. So if you haven't signed up for that, please, would love for you to go ahead and do that. I did put my email address in the chat. If you do not have, if you're not or weren't aware of that seminar or that webinar tomorrow and would like to get a link to be able to sign up for that, please reach out to me. And also, these programs that we offered this week, we're looking to continue them for as long as we feel they'll be beneficial for you. So if there's any topics that you'd like to hear, I can't promise that I can get a speaker on it, but I'll certainly try. So if there's something you'd like to learn about more that you think would support you or your team, these webinars are open to everybody in your organization. So if you think there's something that's needed, either shoot me an email or put something in chat right now. Would love to see if it's something that we can bring to you. So thank you all for joining. I'll stay on for, oh no.
Good catch, Christine. You get the gold star. That's amazing.
And Christine, so I'm going to own that. So this was me last Friday at 6 p.m. working with Susan Zoll to get them out into the web class. That is so funny. And this gets back to Brene Brown's, right? FFTs. We're all doing this for the first time.
The first time.
So funny. But no, it's not about mediation. It is about meditation.
That's awesome.
Well, good. Well, hopefully you're all able to sign up for that tomorrow. We will share the link for today so that you can share it with others in your organization, or I know some of you were not able to stay in for the whole time. Thank you again for joining us. This has been awesome. Looking forward to seeing you hopefully in tomorrow's session and then other future webinars that we put on for you.
And guys, grab the PDF if you didn't already.
Say that again, Laura?
I wanted to remind them to grab the PDF from the chat if they didn't already.
Yes, please go ahead and do that. And then everyone stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you again soon. Oh, awesome, Angela. I'm glad you did that, the virtual happy hour.
Yay, that's awesome.
We still love our happy hours. Come on, we still have to have them.
Margaret, you and I need to have a virtual happy hour.
For sure. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest
everybody.
of the day. I'll be sending the recording out shortly. All right, Laura, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you so very much for being here with us and supporting our members this way. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.